How were women treated and tortured in the Japanese army? This is a topic that's often overlooked or ignored in the history of World War II, but it's also one that reveals the harsh realities and atrocities that many women faced under the Japanese military regime. The war in Asia began in 1937 when Japan invaded China, starting the Second Sino-Japanese War. Japan then expanded its aggression to other parts of Asia and the Pacific, such as Korea, Indochina, Burma, Malaya, Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, and many other islands. Japan wanted to create a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere, which was a euphemism for its imperialist ambitions and domination. Japan's military was notorious for its brutality and cruelty towards its enemies and civilians. It committed many war crimes and human rights violations such as massacres, rapes, torture, experiments, looting, and enslavement. One of the most horrific examples of Japan's atrocities was the Nanjing Massacre in 1937, when Japanese soldiers killed over 200,000 Chinese people and raped tens of thousands of women in 6 weeks. Women were especially vulnerable and exploited by the Japanese army. They faced many forms of abuse and violence that violated their dignity and humanity. Before the modern era, women were sometimes involved in warfare. Some of the most famous examples are Tomo Gozen, a female samurai who fought in the 12th century, Nakano Takeko, a female warrior who led a group of women against the imperial army in the 19th century, and Yamamoto Yeiko, a female gunner who defended a castle during the Meiji Restoration. However, these women were exceptions rather than the norm. In general, women are expected to stay at home and support their husbands or sons who went to war. They were also subject to strict social norms and moral codes that limited their freedom and autonomy. Women were seen as inferior and subordinate to men, and they had to obey their fathers, husbands, or brothers. This situation changed drastically during World War II when Japan mobilized its entire population for the war effort. Women were recruited or conscripted into various roles in the military, such as nurses, clerics, radio operators, pilots, or factory workers. Some women volunteered out of patriotism or duty, while others were forced or coerced by propaganda or pressure. Women were also expected to sacrifice their lives for the emperor and the nation if necessary. However, not all women in Japan's military were treated equally or fairly. Many women faced discrimination, harassment, violence, and abuse from their male superiors or colleagues. They were often denied proper training, equipment, or recognition for their work. They were also subject to harsh discipline and punishment for any mistakes or disobedience. Some of the most horrific examples of abuse and exploitation occurred in the so-called comfort stations, which were brothels that serviced Japanese soldiers. These stations were established by the Japanese military throughout its occupied territories in Asia and the Pacific. They were part of a system of sexual slavery that violated the human rights and dignities of hundreds of thousands of women. The majority of these women were from Korea, China, as well as other Asian countries that Japan invaded or colonized. They were kidnapped, deceived, or coerced into becoming comfort women, which was a euphemism for sex slaves. They had no choice or consent over their fate. Some women became spies who worked for the Japanese army as intelligence agents or informers. They were mostly from Japan or its colonies, but also from other countries. They were trained and recruited by the Japanese military or secret police. They infiltrated enemy lines or territories and gathered or transmitted information. They used various methods and techniques such as disguises, codes, radios, or seduction. They also faced many risks and dangers on their missions. They were often captured, tortured, or executed by the enemy. Some women fought against the Japanese army as resistance fighters or rebels. They were mostly from China, Korea, the Philippines, and other Asian countries. They joined or formed various groups or movements that opposed Japan's occupation or aggression. They used guerrilla tactics and strategies such as ambushes, raids, sabotage, or propaganda. They faced many challenges and obstacles in their struggle. They were often outnumbered, outgunned, or betrayed by their own people. They also suffered from violence, hunger, disease, or isolation. In conclusion, These women endured various forms of abuse and violence, such as massacres, rapes, torture, experiments, looting, and enslavement. They had no protection or justice from their attackers, who acted with impunity and cruelty. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget to leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought about this topic. See you next time.